Good day, grade 12s. My name is Carden Madzokere. I'm the author and publisher of the Distinction Bound Student Textbooks. Now, welcome you to Activity 1.8. Now, it says here, study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Well, we've been coming across the income method. Finally, I have to talk about something relatively different. Now, this is the expenditure method. How do we know? Here it even says, beyond that, we have all the saying expenditure. Okay, so common sense. Now, let's have a look. This is our C. This is our G. This is our I, because gross capital formation is investment spending. Kind of weird to see gross domestic expenditure here and also here. Okay, so this one excludes residual item and this one includes residual item. Well, this is there to deal with any omissions or error. So our omissions or error amounted to a net figure of 19,000. Well, this is what? Millions. Okay, so beyond this 19,097, we put in M. So basically it's 19 billion rands. Okay, then we have gross domestic expenditure, including the residual item. So that'll be 5033 plus 19. So that's 52. Then we add exports, we subtract imports, and then we get market prices. So basically, this is our gross domestic product at market prices. Okay. So I think we're done, and this for 2019, and I also see here it says constant prices 2010. So we can also expect something about base year. So the base year used in this particular scenario was 2010. All right, so let's get down to business. So which year does the South African Reserve Bank currently use as the base year? Well, that currently part is currently as of today. And what's the date? Today is what? August. It's August. Maybe the 8th. I think it's the 8th. The 8th of August 2024. Currently, the Reserve Bank is using 2015 as the base year. But for the purpose of this activity, someone may write 2010. I think it's unfair to mark them wrong because here they are maybe responding to the data given to them. So maybe they may want to say 2010, but in reality, that will be 2015. You watch this at a later stage, the answer might have changed to 2020. Identify the figure used to cater for errors and omissions when calculating the gross domestic expenditure or product at market prices. The question says figure, not item. If it said item, we would say gross. A residual item. Since it says figure, the answer is 19,097 M. I think it's more important to put the M in front of that because here we are told it's million rands. So in front of the 19, write R 19,097 M. You'll be doing yourself a favor there. Be careful. Briefly describe the term gross domestic expenditure. Well, gross domestic expenditure is basically, the key is this part here, domestic. So it is expenditure within the borders of a country. So anything along those lines, expenditure or spending that happens within the borders of a country over a specific period of time. So that gross domestic expenditure would be either at basic or at market. So it'll be this figure here, gross domestic expenditure. The next one, what effect will an increase in imported clothing have on domestic textile manufacturers? This is where we need to be super careful, because if we look here, what effect will an increase in imported? Okay, so if imports, this figure goes up, but definitely is going to affect GDP. And someone may be, enticed to talk about GDP. But the question is not asking about what happens to GDP. Please be careful. The question is talking about what happens to domestic textile manufacturers. So definitely these manufacturers, local manufacturers, will face a lot of competition. And if they cannot, compete with the foreign market, then they may be forced to lower their production. They may be forced to shut down if possible. If they are not, on the same level as the foreign market, then they will definitely suffer. So your response has to be, number one, specific. Talk about what happens to them, and don't be was tempted to talk about what you're not being asked. So don't talk about GDP, talk about what you're being asked. Because yes, we have that tendency of just talking without looking at what the question is asking. The last question, how does gross capital formation impact the economy positively? Well, gross capital formation is an injection. So an increase in an injection will definitely positively affect our economy. So basically it means that our production capacity is going to increase if we invest in our equipment. So investment spending by businesses will positively affect our economy. Okay, so how does basically, if you rephrase this question, it's saying, how is investing a positive thing? So you can even talk about what it would do to the textile industry, even though it's not specific here, but taking it from this, you could be, and it's not like it then becomes wrong. So looking at our response, 2010 or 15, and then the figure there, remember it was the residual. Then briefly describe, expenditure on all goods and services produced within the borders. So this part is important. Then what effect would an increase in imported clothing have on domestic textile manufacturers, not GDP? So domestic textile manufacturers should face more competition that might force them to produce less. They might have less consumers and so on. This is basically what I said. And nowhere do we see them talking about GDP, because the question is not talking about GDP. Yes, even though it's true that GDP is affected, but no one asked you that. Then the last one, how does gross capital formation, this is basically investment. So how is investment a positive thing to the economy? So the increased capital base of the country will increase production capacity. I say this, gross capital formation will contribute to the growth potential of the economy through value-added process. Then balance of payment problems will decrease by an increase in export production, because if we invest locally, what happens is, if we invest locally, we can be able to export. So at the end of the day, this goes up if this goes up. So we have current account surplus, not a deficit. At this point in time, what we see is we are exporting more than importing. So this is a good thing. We are importing less than what we are exporting, but it doesn't mean we have a surplus on the current account, because there are other things that we don't see, like service receipts, service payments, income receipts, income payments. We don't even know what's happening there. But the only thing we see here is that we have a trade balance, because this export of goods and services includes gold, which we exclude on our BOP. But in this case, gold is included. So at the end of the day, this is not really a surplus on the BOP, because there are many other things that we don't see. The only thing we can say with confidence is that we have a positive trade balance. Well, this brings us to the end of this particular video. Thank you so much. God bless.